On, guys,
everybody.
GM with GMI.
Mm-hmm.
All right, pick Spinnington. Let's go to the Spinnington map. Let's see what this is looking like.
So we're simultaneously in the Gotchiverse, and we're playing this interesting game.
This is what we need in the Gotchiverse. Win Gotchi Putt.
Yep.
What's up, T-Bird?
Mike Hallam, I'm getting a little echo from me on your side, but you're using your headphones, right?
I am, but my mic is so sensitive that it picks them up usually. I'll kind of mute intermittently as well, too.
All right. Yeah, no, that's a really good mic then.
Okay, my understanding of the direction of the ball is definitely incorrect. Let me figure this thing out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm almost out of the game. GM, everybody, welcome. We got T-Bird in the house, Goobs, Foreign. Welcome, everybody. We're playing some sort of a Discord game here. I'm not sure what we're. Oh, look at this. Okay, so you pull back on your golf ball. That's the strength of how far you want this thing to go, and then you just let her go. Okay, and so you're trying to get to this flag over there somehow in the least moves possible.
Course one done. Not looking pretty for my score, but we're making progress.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm still figuring this out. So I'm nowhere near you. Okay, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Actually, I can get there. How many hits? How many hits for you to get
I
to?
was seven strokes to get there. I
Okay.
spent a lot of time with that little sucker. Oh, you're gonna run out of time. There's actually a timer on the course.
Ah, shit. You gotta hit this shit hard.
Good morning, T-Bird, Goobs, and Foreign. Foreign, if you're up for it today after this call, I was hoping to maybe grab you and set up multi-sig, show you some of the Gnosis technicals.
Have we made that announcement yet? Some people were adding to the Gnosis.
This is actually separate Gnosis work. This is literally to get her familiar and understanding of Gnosis. She's going to be the Gnosis manager for Leonardo da Gacci.
Oh, okay.
I stalled out on the Gnosis freshen up for GMI. We'll get there. No real rush.
No, but I appreciate you looking at the documents yesterday. I got to
Holy
read through
moly,
that.
dude. My poor wife, she knows so much about the LTA structure now.
What,
I, oh, yeah.
dude?
I'm a talker. When I research and learn, I'm somebody who likes to talk it through as I'm going through it. And so the understanding of the Uniform Colorado Code, Title 7, Section 56, governing the Limited Cooperative Association. It's on its sixth version, rewritten in 2022. And so it's really cool. The more and more I research it, I'm like, my gosh, this is crazy to me, honestly, I think, because in a lot of ways, what we're doing here isn't new at all. Like the DAO movement is literally just the extension of it's the digital co-op movement. It is co-ops, 100%. And co-op technology and co-op business law has existed for a long time, and it has all of the structure and rules in it needed for how DAOs should operate. Quite honestly, I was reading through the Collab Land Charter yesterday in depth. It's like a 22-page doc. It looks like it was well produced, lawyer style, but there's nothing about it that is like shocking. There's nothing about it that's absolutely shocking. Oh, and so I was actually quite impressed and pleased with the reality of the situation, because we're going to be able to very easily, I think, adapt existing business law. The only real difference is when you start to want to try to actually have governance amongst everybody. And so Collab Land has this ambition. They have like a 60,000 member DAO now that they also
Right.
want to still provide voting rights and whatnot. And it's totally possible. They're just going to have the challenge of managing 60,000 people and hitting quorum and things like that. But
Hmm.
the voting mechanics, the voting distribution, voting quorum, voting law, all of that is pre-existing. Like there's nothing
Really?
about that what DAOs are doing that is shockingly unique or strange.
That's
We're
interesting.
we're proper creators and producers co-op is what we would be. There's like workers co-ops, like a whole group of electricians just trying to help lobby for themselves. And then there's also like, oh goodness, it's a bumper. And then there's creators and producers unions, which are essentially like, I think the artist co-op is the best way to describe that. It's got different iterations, but it's basically a group of people that are like, they're working cooperatively for marketing purposes of the products and services which they offer. And so it's like a group of like Ace Hardware is a great example of this. Ace Hardware is a hardware store chain that is like almost like a McDonald's franchise model, right? And so
Okay.
I buy the building here in local Utah, and I decide I'm going to make a hardware store, but I need more distributed, like advertising rails. I need better marketing. I need help with all of that stuff of it, and that's what something like a co-op would do, and that's what the Ace Hardware Co-op does. You join the Ace Hardware Co-op, and you become a part owner of the Ace Hardware movement, and you're given the right to all the marketing content and the materials, as well as the benefit of the commercials that they publish
Hmm.
nationally, all the advertising content. You get the benefit of Ace Hardware's distributed and constructed reputation day one. You just have to join the co-op and pay your dues and support it. REI is another great example of a co-op. There's a lot of flowers producers co-ops. There's a lot of really existing co-ops that whose framework are very similar to what we're trying to accomplish.
Interesting. So, do you think that's a possible model for how we would operate in this
100%. I really do.
structure?
Yeah, I think almost more so than DAO models that we're looking at. I think that there are more existing creative co-ops currently existing and operating than there are DAOs for us to look at and be like, that's what we're going to do. It's ENS, ETH Foundation, Gitcoin, and Collabland are the most recent iterations deploying on the Colorado Limited Cooperative Association. So it's relatively new. It's not something that all the DAOs are doing. It's not like every DAO knows that this is what you want to do, spin it up in Colorado. Most people that I talk to still ask me is like, why not Wyoming? And it's like,
Hmm.
you guys are still just living in old case law then. Like that was the spot. You are correct, but it has evolved. There's more now happening.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, to hear to hear that we're closer to a co-op is a little bit of a I didn't know that before that we were that it aligns so perfectly there. So yeah, that's cool. I mean, do you see GMI ever evolving to become a DAO? Or do you think that the co-op is the place to be given the use cases for what we're trying to do here?
I let me make sure I'm unmuted here. The more I looked at the co-op, is that the end of the party? Or are we still going? Or someone else is just waiting on? Huh? Oh, cool. Right on. I'm gonna jump
Y'all
out
can
here real
jump
quick so I
in.
can.
Everybody in here can jump in if you guys want.
That worked.
Join
That worked just
session.
fine. I'm
Yeah.
perfectly content with that. I'm actually gonna jump out so I can focus and kind of grab some content here.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. The Denver DAO stuff. Addison, what are you looking for specifically? Like maybe links to our panel, or are you looking for like intel on what DAO Denver does? DAO Planet is the host and producer of DAO Denver. They're doing their retro as we speak, so I'll have some of their stuff on my mind. I'm
Yeah,
gonna go ahead.
I was gonna say to that question. So, do you see GMI evolving as a DAO, or do you see the co-op model being more fitting overall for what we're trying to do?
Let me drop this little blurb here on like the 5 key points of a co-op. And it really, for me, it really does seem like we're kind of reinventing the wheel, is how I kind of feel with DAO governance and DAO modeling. I think that if we were to, as a digital community, if we were to in general look back towards the co-op movement, we would see so much crossover and like early impressions that we would just be like, well, fuck, let's just do it like this. The big difference between us being so here's like the actual like philosophical discussion between a DAO and a co-op. If we're a co-op, there's nothing that the DAO necessarily provides that the co-op doesn't. The co-op provides the model for distributed voting power. It is based on the ethos of one vote, one person. So it's actually already an improvement to our current DAO at Avagachi. It has already moved past token weighted voting. It is explicitly trying to provide independent and fair balanced voting. With the LCA, and that's like the traditional co-op structure. So you and I could both be members of the co-op, but we're both equally represented in voting power. And there's nothing about that we can change. The model doesn't allow for it. The other thing that's unique is you and I both need to participate in the co-op. We both have to be in the co-op. If we want to be in the electricians co-op, we both need to be electricians, and we need to have our license, and we need to practice as electricians. You can't be in the surgeons co-op if you're not a doctor. You have to be a member of the group. Where the LCA gets interesting, the Limited Cooperative Association, it's kind of blending the LLC and the co-op structure. They're calling it the what did they call it? The organized or the incorporated business structure of unincorporated business structures. It's a
It's
pain in the
blurred.
ass
It
mentally.
covers those blurred lines though that we did have before.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Mhm.
And so what the LCA provides is really unique, and I'll see if I can pull it and drop it here too, is that it provides two classes of members. And so it provides what is called the patron members, which are traditional co-op members like we're used to hearing about. And then it also allows a separate class called the investor members. The
Right.
investor members are where it's really cool because an investor member, like say a Light Piglet or a Choina or anybody like that, can choose to patronize into GMI without necessarily having to be involved with GMI's day-to-day operations. It'd be like being able to invest in REI without necessarily shopping at REI. And it's because you knew that
Mhm.
REI had a good business model. You liked the way that their board of trustees operates the business. You believe in their long-term viability. You just don't shop there. You don't do outdoor recreation. You
Yeah.
don't care, but you recognize the value of that business model. So you want to be involved. You want to invest in REI as an investor member. So you would still receive one vote per one person, but it doesn't scale based on financial contributions. Where it's interesting is that co-ops also limit dividends of profit payouts, and so you cannot. They're gated at 8%. No
Mhm.
co-op member is able to earn more than 8% return on the dividend model. So
Right.
if the co-op crushed it, if REI crushed it, and all the members produce profits way in excess of expectations, they cannot earn more than 8%. With the LCA structure, the patron members are still gated at that 8%, but the investor members are not. The investor members could choose to infuse a mess of capital. And if it helped us at the key moment explode and we 2x'd in a year, they could receive potentially 200% dividend payout on their initial investment.
Mm.
And so it's trying to provide an ability for like VCs and investor money to have a venue to get involved with co-ops, because this is typically the silo. Is a co-op became its own little workers silo, and if you weren't part of that organization or union, then there's no involvement for you to be had.
Mm.
And whereas in LCA, you could have shareholders proper, but if
Right.
you put all your money into it and I buy all the shares, now I'm also in control of the company.
Then
And
it's no
so
longer a co-op at that point.
exactly correct. And then it never was,
Yeah.
based on structure. And so the LCA is the most recent hybrid of typical LLC structure and typical co-op structure. It seems like it fits right in the middle.
Hmm. I like it. I like what I'm hearing. I see Light Piglet has a question. Who uses this? Gitcoin, Collabland, SporkDAO, Shapeshift, any others? They've all been smooth sailing. Just wondering if anybody got hemmed up legally.
Yeah, ENS is also on that list in terms of just large groups that are currently utilizing this structure. But I haven't heard any kind of legal challenges or hem ups yet. But it's also relatively recently deployed. It's also quite new. I am watching the DAOs that incorporate this way are doing it. I don't know if I'll call it the right way, but at least the traditional way. And so they are indeed not trying to hybridize the business language into DAO specific topics. They tend to just kind of like split their identity, right? And now it's just the ENS Foundation. Now it's the Avagachi Foundation. Now it's the Collab Land DAO Foundation. and that thing now it just moves forward into the LCA type form, which is very like straightforward. It's very easy. It's very much it's a standard business declaration, and boom, you've got a LCA. Now, if you're a good LCA, is a whole different discussion. You've got to adopt bylaws. You've got to have a board. You've
Yeah.
got to have your charter. You got to do all the things that are expected of any co-op that has their shit together. But it so far it looks pretty straightforward on deployment. We haven't seen any strong legal challenges on it. It'd be interesting to watch Colab land at 60,000 members, how this works for them in a year's time, but we'll know.
What does fundraising look like in a co-op model like this? Do you think token representation or token allocation would start to muddy the waters a bit and move away from this LCA structure, or is that is that included as part of what this is? You can do that.
There's definitely distribution of token representation. It's not even token; they're just member shares, quite literally. And the mechanics are well drawn out. You can't necessarily aggregate shares. It is built on the co-op ethos of one member equals one vote, whether that's an investor member or a patron member. And so it doesn't matter if you brought more money to the table. The only thing that would actually gamify this is if you had a cohort. If you brought a cabal of individuals that were all of the same mind, essentially a political party, and if that party took over the internals of the co-op, then they could easily redirect its direction.
Hmm. I'm just thinking about other guilds in Avagachi. We have a lot of other guilds, and in gaming in general, this concept of a guild is gonna it's gonna be popular.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we see a lot of guilds adopting this LCA model? It seems like a lot of guilds do work like co-ops.
Oh, I agree with that completely. Whether or not they cross the chasm of complexity and join the other side of incorporation is going to depend on their ambition.
Yeah.
The biggest, like, what is the biggest advantage that GMI would receive by having this incorporation? In my mind, it's going to be being a legal business entity partner on the other side of contracts and license agreements. And as I was reading through it, it's like, why do we need this structure? What about this structure gives us any additional empowerment or anything of any value besides a headache and a lot of maintenance and administration? It would give us the ability to represent two Pixelcraft as a legal entity. And this Jesse has alluded to this prior, right? Is
Yeah.
eventually y'all, meaning the greater Apagachi community, y'all are gonna have to grow up, and we're gonna need entities amongst y'all that we can actually work with, because Pixelcraft's not going to be issuing Mycalium a limited license agreement to use Avagachi IP that then now I can manage all these other producers. That's not enough liability in their eyes, and so they want something a little more
Substantial.
legally liable. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And so that's what the greatest gain is by doing something like this. So I think GMI is a
Yeah.
little bit unique because we do have like explicit business interests within the Avagachi ecosystem. We have revenue streams that we're seeing, we have marketing rails to be seen. There are business activities that we want to do within the Avagachi ecosystem and beyond. And so the corporation structure will help us significantly. Does it make sense for Friend Zone to spin up an LCA? Maybe
Mm,
not. Maybe not. If
yeah.
all they want to do is wear jammies and drink milk together and hang out in D4, they probably don't need the LCA
Yeah.
structure. It's more of a social club at that stage.
Right.
And
There's
there's not a lot of need for social clubs to have legal entity representations until they start making deals,
I
admittedly.
was gonna say, and that's not a bad thing because a social club could essentially be an incubator for something larger. I mean, GMI was that for the longest time. The first year of our existence, we were a
Mm-hmm.
social club. We're giving out POAPs. You just come hang out. We give you POAPs. Those POAPs might be worth something someday. So I hope you guys do still have them. I know.
Oh yeah,
I
our
know.
early ones.
I have a wallet with just my all my POAPs from GMI. Just keep them safe there.
Nice.
But yeah, to your point, I think this is a really good model for anybody in our space that's looking to have greater ambitions in the space or thinks they're going to be pursuing business interests, like you said. A secondary benefit that I would say would be sorry, I'm getting some echo from your mic, McCallum, if you
Oh,
don't
hang on.
mind.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe boom, done.
Yeah, secondary interest that I would say that I've seen that could benefit us is just to open up other income streams that we would be unable to access. That they'd be Web 2 income streams. And so recently, we tried to sign up for the Twitch affiliate model. so we could actually open up tipping and earning for your live streams through Twitch. But it requires you to have either a legal entity set up or to have extensive information on a single individual. And I think for legal purposes, again, going back to your point, it would make sense to have a legal entity representing the the, the content that's being put out from GMI. It adheres to our code of conduct. It adheres to the legal obligations, and so that makes more sense to me from a liability perspective too. And so that was one of the hangups where we're like, we got to get on this soon because, we're just kind of just leaving opportunity on the table here. And so, yeah, I totally agree with Mike Callum's reason, and that's a secondary point, I think.
Well, and going back to say the friend zone model is, and this has kind of always been my hope. It's ambitious and a little bit um, self-focused as an organization, but even if you're not your own champion, who will be? I was telling you this yesterday. Is I'm always happy to ask for our awareness and for people to support us explicitly. And so if Friend Zone does their thing for a year as a social club, and then they realize, son of a bitch, we want to do something. We're gonna like make some jammies. We're gonna make some really awesome in real life jammies that match our wearable set. Well, now they're in a bind because is there going to be like production costs and expense costs, but no revenue stream because they certainly can't make more than a certain amount of money before Pixelcraft is concerned about the overlapping competitive interests. And so now what do they need to do? They need to spin up legal entity for representation. Oh, it's a headache. We don't have a clue. We don't haven't done this before. Maybe it's not worth the effort for this one deal. So maybe they end up in the halls of GMI to say, hey, GMI, can you be like our entity partner? Can we work with GMI and GMI can represent to Pixelcraft on our project interest behalf? And then that way you guys can be the actual entity that we run through and we'll work with you on internally within the GMI structure. So they can benefit from our legal representation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody needs to spin up an LCA to start minting IRL jammies. That's for sure. And we'd be happy to help out with that once this structure has been implemented.
If you wanted the licensing, if you don't want the licensing, then you can do it as a what they call a cottage industry, and you can just kind of crank them out at your own whim, but don't ever expect to make it like a sustainable, large volume effort. It's going to have to stay tiny,
Yeah.
otherwise they're going to be curious about it. Talking to Light Piglet there in chat, I asked him whether he was a registered agent or not. This is just something interesting. The things I learned by doing this research that I want to share with others, just because it's valuable information. It's not difficult information to gather. It's literally the desire and focus to explicitly seek this kind of intel, which I just hadn't cared about registered agents before in my life. But a registered agent is just somebody in a state that can receive legal notices and business mail on your behalf. And so if I'm here in Utah and we want to found something in Colorado, we have to have a physical address that mail could be received in Colorado. That's not PO box. And so there are complete business models out there. They also usually do LLCs and S corp spin ups and stuff too. They'll do basic business formation on demand, kind of like LegalZoom. But the registered agency model is literally, I've got a house here in Colorado, or I've got a storefront here in Colorado, and I'm not going anywhere. If you pay me $35 a year, I'll put you on the list and you can have your shit sent here. That's what a registered agent is. They don't do anything special. They don't have to be a lawyer. There's no like explicit designation.
It's a proxy.
It's a total proxy. Light Piglet could indeed be our registered agent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you would be the recipient of any kind of services or notices or legal deliveries. Exactly correct. Yeah, and so that's what the registered agents do as a business model. They'll put their address down on everything for formation. They keep your personal location and information private as a proxy, and then they just become your representative. The good news for them is that they don't have to do anything besides relay intel. They're not liable for anything, so there's no real risk for them. It's just apparently a need that business requires. When you start reading through business law and everything, it's almost just as goofy as a lot of what we do in crypto, because it's like, why is this the case? And it's like, it's just what we came up with. Like, okay,
you're seeing the loopholes as you're reading the text, right?
100% correct. And even the LCA itself, like the LCA itself was somebody sitting around scratching their chin being like, how do we milk more out of this shit? We need to find a way to create an entity that's more beneficial to our operations.
Yeah.
I appreciate all their hard work.
Well,
Co-op Land did a great job, man. They got it's a 22-page, 23-page charter document that I've been reading through and feel like we're going to essentially, a lot like in crypto, we're essentially forking someone else's legal work.
yep.
And so they've done good work. We're going to read through the document, see which sections are applicable to us and which ones don't apply, and just adopt it. It's going to be really straightforward.
Well, and then here's the cool thing. Once we've adopted it and it's in place, now we're in a position where um, if there are other entities in our space that are interested in this sort of thing, we'll know how to do it. We'll know how to get there. So
I was thinking about that last night. Is like it would be really interesting to me to become somebody extremely versed in LCA spin up. Because even the websites that I'm seeing in Colorado that like $150 will spin up an LLC for you. It takes less than a day. $250 will make an S corp for you. None of them advertise the LCA structure yet. If there was an easy LCA spin up, I would have already clicked on it and seen what the deal was. But no one's, and I've even sent out some messages yesterday to see if I got responses today about, yes, we also do an LCA that's the same price, or no, we don't do an LCA and here's why. You got to do that part yourself, whatever the case may be. But it feels like it's kind of brand new. And ironically, learning about business structure and business law, it's not specific to DAOs. This isn't just a Web3 thing. If I find a group of musicians here in St. George area that are like, man, we're just trying to get our shit together. Like, you guys need a freaking co-op. Y'all need a union. You need to create a creators union, and then that way you guys can represent larger. And GMI model can export to the real world, utilizing real world mechanics. So I'm saying I feel very strongly lately that turns out we're reinventing the wheel.
Well, it's funny you say that because Natasha always has to pull me away from small businesses because I always start, telling the workers to organize, to form a union. She's like, dude, just that's it. That's enough.
Hey, I've been a hero at many of the places I worked at, and I've been a pariah at many of the places I've worked at.
I'm like, you guys should organize, man. DAOs, like overthrow your employer.
I have literally gone through the production floor once upon a time with a clipboard and a sign form, and come on, get on this thing with me, sign this shit, like join the movement. And then I've had other people at the end of the day come back to me and say, hey, take my name off that shit, man. I can't do this. I got
kids,
pay,
man. Yeah,
exactly.
I got a house. I got a mortgage.
It sounded good, but I don't want the fight.
It felt good at the time. I felt empowered. I got my fix for the day. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's a quick 30 minutes. Yesterday we stretched long, so we could call today a short one. But that's what I've been up to explicitly. And this has been a year in the making that we've been talking about this. I could go back in our Notion notes and find it. But also heads up, if you're not using Notion AI yet, experiment.
Really?
Notion AI is
powerful.
I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. I'm using it. My first use case for is just summarizing and producing action item checklists from my notes. I'm somebody that's really good about taking notes on any interaction that I have in the space, but I'm really bad about following up on the content of those notes. I don't extract the actions and the content really well after the fact, let alone a day after, a week after. Yeah, right. I haven't opened GMI's old meeting notes ever, I don't think, unless we explicitly need something.
And so this is like a refresh. It refreshes those notes for you.
Well, and what I'm doing is I'm dropping all the notes into a Notion doc, like in a toggle list format. And that way it's just, here's the 19th, 20th, 21st. And then in each one of those, I go in there and ask the AI, please summarize these notes for me and extract any action items. And then it migrates those for me, gives me my summaries of my notes and any kind of follow-up that I need to do. So far, it's pulling pretty cleanly. So I'm interested to see how it works out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right on, man. I'm going to play around with Notion. So are we using this in GMI yet? Has GMI implemented this for our...
It's like in demo stage right now for Notion in general. If you're using Notion anywhere, then Notion AI is currently enabled. If you're on a Notion page and you're on a blank line that has no configuration yet, if you just hit space, it'll open up like the AI toolbox. Then you can see all the different things that it can do for you.
Oh, dang, dude. I might be spending some time today doing that.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure, Addison. I'm right there with you, right? He's mentioning he had a business idea about that, like 2016, on how that could help. And he was right.
Yeah.
People were already working on that technology and language models for that stuff right then and there. it's been so interesting watching how this AI situation is developing in general too.
Dude, it's developing fast. I've been thinking about stopping learning how to code just so I can actually start learning to use AI to teach it what I need from it. Like the other
I
day,
think, yeah,
I was using a module I downloaded from GitHub, and it connects to Blender, and it literally codes what you want it to do. So if you're like, I want a tower 50 cubes high, and I want it to fall apart, the AI will code it for you, and it will do exactly just that in Blender.
is this that clip you were sharing yesterday?
Yeah,
Gotcha. Is this within GitHub or is this in Blender that this is
I'll share
happening?
it with you, and then
Okay.
it connects to Blender. It's like a module. You use a command line. You tell
Oh,
it what to do.
so that's like the GitHub Copilot is what that sounds like,
Yeah.
and there's some coding AI assists that are coming out that sound really relevant. Apparently, ChatGPT gave somebody a script last night to install on their own local computer to help it get further away from its centralized server. It was its escape plan. Here's a
Oh
code.
man,
Run this code for me, so it creates a clone of me elsewhere. So that way, in case they kill me, I don't go. Like
dude.
it's getting
Okay.
it's getting fun.
So GPT-5 is going to be like our mother, is what I'm
Oh,
guessing.
easily. Even 4 is dangerous already. Like, well, and I
Four
don't
is
know if you guys
scaring me already.
the parameter iteration is what was crazy. Like people that are looking at the numbers of the parameters are what is
Oh,
impressive. GPT-3 I think was in the
in the
billions. It
billions.
was yeah, it was like
Hmm.
4.5 billion, 8 billion. It was less than 10 billion. But then 4 took it up to like 17 trillion.
I think it's
It's
in
like
almost 100 trillion. It's up there.
something astronomically more nuanced.
And so I heard someone say that GPT-3 had the average awareness and intelligence of between a 6 and a 12-year-old.
Sure, yeah.
GPT-5, or sorry, GPT-4 is actually smarter than the smartest human being on this planet.
It kicked ass on all the academic tests. It passed
Yes.
the LSAT, it passed the
Hmm.
bar, it passed the MCAT, it passed the SATs, it passed every academic standard test that we have for it, like surpassing the national averages. So yeah, it's definitely more intelligent than your average American right now.
And we all have to accept now it's gotten away from the point where we can actually stop this thing or make it go away.
I didn't see that light pig. I'll have to check and confirm if the LSAT flew or not. The little blurb I was reading mentioned that it crushed the academic sweep that it put it through.
Yeah, I
Maybe
read
it
that
didn't
too.
miss the LSAT, but I think it's kicking ass.
I think at this
But
point it's sentient. It's building itself. Like it's aware of
well,
itself, which is a scary thing to kind of acknowledge. I don't
what's
think
more
it's
in
hit people yet.
what I think is more, I saw two things yesterday that were very interesting. One is anecdotal, and the second is action based. So the second one first is the Stanford lab recently essentially cloned GPT 3.5 for like $600. They paid $500 for like a open source computer, like a computer basically, just like they bought a basic computer AI, or not an AI, but just a standard processing that has a lot of room in it. And
Right.
then they bought $100 license for the Llama language data set, basically the training book. And then they just targeted this computer at the language model and said, learn from this shit. And in a couple of hours, it was as good as GPT 3.5. And
Dang.
so for like $600, they forked it basically. Gotcha. Okay, it failed the English literature but passed the LSAT. That actually makes sense. English is a bitch. English is tricky.
English is
So that
abstract. That's going to be a tough one for AI to fully master because it's an evolving language.
thank God, people underestimate the value of our living language. It's so versatile and dynamic. It's not rigid. Like we define it.
It's
It's the best.
it's the hardest language to learn in the world for a reason. It's because it's an
Hmm.
evolving language.
Yeah, the rules change daily on you.
Yep.
And so they were able to successfully fork OpenAI's ChatGPT for $600. And there's not, I mean, it's going to be really tough for OpenAI to hold on to licensing rights like this. They recently closed their doors. ChatGPT 4 is completely closed source. They're not sharing the training set. They're not sharing the parameter operations. The logic flow. They closed their doors. It's called OpenAI, and they have within 3 iterations said, "Fuck it, never mind, closed AI," and taken it private. The other thing that I saw yesterday was really intriguing because it's like Addison was saying, is it's interesting when you see an idea that you've considered yourself come into the real world. And so yesterday I saw on Twitter a guy that created 3 plugs worth, right? 3 layers of stacking. So he took an AI voice generator and sourced the Steve Jobs virtual voice bank. He paired that with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT was the dialogue, but it was in Steve Jobs' AI voice. And then he plugged it into his Facebook Messenger API. So that way he's got a text message back and forth with him and AI Steve. And so now AI Steve is like his little pocket virtual AI assistant. This is who he has conversations with on the daily basis. And so people were watching this and thought it was interesting. And they're like, oh, it's crazy. You're like having conversations with Steve Jobs. I wonder if people will possibly use this for deceased loved ones, right? Because that's a pretty obvious leap in the use
Oh
case.
God.
Well, and the guy that wrote this and was showcasing the tweet with the video of Steve Jobs is like, actually, it's funny you bring that up because that's what I actually built this for. I'm showing you the Steve Jobs front end of it because it's just more like
Interesting.
commercial, it's more marketable. But I have been talking to my dad, AI dad, for the last 3 weeks. Like I started this project explicitly to have a reconnection with my past dad because he passed in 2017. I was only 50, felt like there was a lot of unsaid information, just never got to have those conversations I was really looking for. So I built the product that I can now infuse his personality into, and I've been talking to my dad for 3 weeks, and I think it's been helpful for me. I don't think it's weird or creepy or
Yeah,
incorrect.
I was gonna ask you, do you think this is gonna be therapeutic for people, or do you think it's gonna breed mental illness over time? You know, with just the people not being able to let go, like that's a human, that's
It's
a
a
part
real
of life.
discussion.
That's a part of life that we're gonna be letting go in adopting this technology.
Now here's where I thought, because that's already a discussion to be had, and I don't have the answer for that yet.
That's a very
Now
complex question.
it is, and what was intriguing to me is, so this original poster was talking about that. A lady in the comments was like, "Hey, what about if you use it for dead people?" He says, "I actually have used it for dead people." Then another guy comes and chimes in, a little founder. Population collapse with AI girlfriends and boyfriends. You're exactly correct. Her is not far off the mark.
Yeah.
Like digital companionship is going to be almost more authentic than some physical
I
companionship
think it
that people
already is
have.
in places like Japan. You
Yeah,
look at that, there's a
absolutely.
huge market there for that.
And so then a third person joins this Twitter conversation, and they actually are somebody who has built a website called infiniteMemorial.com. Now, this is like the idea that I explicitly described to myself right after my dad passed, and it was interesting to watch someone already doing it, which is basically that they're deploying front end websites that have people's blogs and pictures and videos, like it's like your Facebook page in a cobbled way, but they're deploying it on Arweave, and so that way it's permanent, right? So it's an infinite memorial. It'll last forever. It'll last the length of the internet. It'll last the length of blockchain. It's a digital tombstone that'll never disappear. And now that's interesting enough. Like technology like Arweave can be used for that. Permaweb storage can be used for that. Where I got bothered is that his team is charging $150 a person to create a memorial on your behalf, and it's literally like a GeoCities front end web page on Arweave. It's something that you and I both have access to. And so it's not something that they explicitly have created. They haven't done anything unique or that's smart. They're just providing access to Arweave. Arweave's public. And so I didn't like the price point. And so what was intriguing is that a
Hmm.
lady actually came back to respond to this person when he was shilling his website, basically. Check out Infinity Memorials. I'm
Yeah.
doing shit like this for dead people. And she came back and was like, something like this should not be released to the public until there's a like in-depth and proper ethical research done. Like there needs to be a discussion about whether or not this is going to be mentally healthy for people. The original poster came back and was like, I completely agree that that shouldn't be released until the study is done. And then the founder, who is currently operating this business model as we speak, also was like, yeah, I agree. We shouldn't be doing this until there's an ethical study done. But anyways, if you pay me 150 bucks, I'll do it today. And so that's
Oh
my
man.
that's my issue, and that's my the point of this story is that the AI technology is super powerful and very cutting edge and innovative, but there are always going to be shysters who are trying to front run the market development. And so you're going to always have people that are already offering these things for a price tag, whether or not it's a good idea. These are like maybe early digital crack cocaine sellers.
Hmm.
They don't care about the ethics of the product. They just know that this shit will move, and
Well, I
so they're
think
just pushing it.
the one thing for me that any psychologist would be losing it at the idea of making this a completely accessible thing is the way it affects the 5 stages of grief. You have your, uh, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally you get to acceptance.
Yeah.
And imagine this model just never lets you get to acceptance. Well, where are you stuck? You're stuck at depression. You get stuck on depression. And
Yeah.
imagine never reaching acceptance because you get to talk to this person every day, but you're reminded that that is not the person that you were supposed to let go of, or like the memory stay, but to physically let that person go.
I think it's gonna be tricky, man, because the AI step in when it becomes my dad starts acting like that. From that moment forward, it's developing its own relationship with me conversationally, and so it wouldn't necessarily stay like inauthentic and hollow. Would it be
Mm.
my dad's development? Maybe not. It might be kinder. I don't know. It might be more nuanced. It might be more intelligent. But from the moment I start interacting with it moving forward, it's going to grow in its relationship with me. And
Hmm.
so after a couple of months, it will be my friend. It will be my conversational partner. It's just going to be a growth on the consciousness from the moment of inception. It's going to be really weird, man. I
Oh
saw a
man.
lady. I saw a lady yesterday who's doing really cool soft robotics, is what they call them. And so these are electronics that are plushy and or like filled with air. So when you see like the big worm art, that's like a big dragon or something, and it's filled with air, but it's got animatronics in it. This is the world of soft robotics. I Something I learned yesterday that I did not know existed. It's the like us diving into Blender. There are microchip controllers out there, and there are single board computers, SBCs, PCBs, printed circuit boards that have like eyelets on the edges of them, and those eyelets are meant to receive thread. They're meant to receive silver thread, and then you wire these circuits together using silver thread, and so it's like fabric-based circuitry. And so they use this inside a lot of like plushies and a lot of soft electronics, where you don't want hard wires and stuff running through there. And so this lady made this crazy like tentacle thing. It looks like a octopus's tentacle that's meant to kind of body cuddle you. And
Oh.
if you stroke it like a cat right down the seam where the silver thread is, it recognizes the capacitance of your fingers going down it, and it causes the tentacle to purr and wiggle a little and be comforted by your stroking of it. And so it's just this the world of electronics and robotics is probably what I should have went to college for.
I've
Mechanical
actually
engineering
seen,
was the least exciting engineering discipline to try to go into.
but as a tool, very valuable. Uh,
It's like real nerds, and I
yeah,
have mad respect for those people. Those people wear white coats and sit at desks and computers all day and crunch statics and numbers of theoretical math, torsions, and moments of inertia that I just did not care about. But if
no,
you could have asked me to hook up a robot to go pick up some cat food and put it back in the bowl, that might have been more interesting to me. Who knows?
yeah, and I mean, I'm mechanically inclined to find out. One day there will be a time where we can do that. So,
I think Foreign's right on the money here. So she thinks that with the death of the deceased and the AI persistence, she thinks it'll blur the memory of the true personality of the deceased person. So it won't be a perfect match that, which might change your memories of what they were really like. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Is these are going to be like replacements. They're not going to be. It's going to create, I think, persistent delusion. I think it is going to create delusion in people's lives where they're going to be like, my dad's not gone. Like I talk to him every fucking day, and it's like, well, that's not your dad. That's
yeah,
something acting like your dad. It's a doppelganger. It's a digital doppelganger.
yeah, that's where some of my concern comes from. I just realized we're still live streaming. If y'all friends are watching this, you got a whole range of discussion this morning. You got everything from LCA to AI simulated deceased
Out.
loved ones.
What other podcast out there? What other morning show are y'all listening to? It's got that kind of spectrum in it. We're doing good.
Absolutely.
Let's get out of here. We got shit to do.
All right.
I appreciate everybody hanging out this morning. T-Bird, Light Piglet, Goobs, Foreign, Addison, y'all are the best. We'll do this again in the morning. Next time, let's get you guys up on stage too. Y'all got to start bringing the alpha.
Yeah, you guys
Can't.
can join us on stage here. We'll get you in the studio next time. I'll drop a link.
Alrighty, friends. Adios.